Havana was a city of elegance and grandeur when New York was just a clearing in a forest.
This is a game of about more than 100 years in Cuba. All people and young people like to play domino.
Today, it is Havana's remarkable fusion of African and Latin culture that catches the eye and the ears. For all its charm, there is a less glamorous side to Havana. People here are recovering from years of incredible hardship.
En Cuba, nosotros, el pueblo, toca un pan de 5 centavos por persona. Pero a mí el que me gusta es el que se compra con dólar. Pero como yo no gano dólar, pues tengo que conformarme con el pancito de 5 centavos.
The toll taken on ordinary Cubans is evident in the grim ration shops found in every Havana neighborhood. Most still rely on ration books for staples such as sugar, rice, beans, and salt. The bad times began after the collapse of the Soviet Union. As many as half of Havana's families couldn't get enough to eat.
It was a very difficult period because we have a level, very good standards. And suddenly we lost all of that. We call it here a special period, but it was a big crisis that we have to face.
This is the story of how Havana has managed to pull itself back from the brink, thanks in part to a new kind of revolution that has quite literally taken root here. For the first time in generations, residents are planting and harvesting food crops in every corner of their congested city. It's a transformation that has inspired environmentalists worldwide and brought a new spirit of enterprise into communist Cuba. Saturday night in Havana, and passions are running high, as they do every time that the home team takes on arch-rival Santiago. Baseball is only one of the many big city attractions that lure Cubans to Havana, home to almost a third of the country's population. Though many are cynical about the 40-year-old revolution, even more are thankful that healthcare and education are better than in most countries in the region. Yet Cubans have paid a heavy price for their political isolation. In the old days, the Soviet Union helped Cuba survive the American embargo by buying sugarcane at high prices. In exchange, half of Cuba's food used to be imported from communist allies in Eastern Europe. When the Berlin Wall collapsed, so did Cuba's food system. There was no money for imports, and what local food there was couldn't be trucked into the city because of a shortage of gasoline. Doctors reported patients going blind from malnutrition.
So, welcome home.
Urban farming activist Roberto Perez was a science student at the University of Havana at the time.
So some people, what they did is they took their bicycles and they tried to go to the countryside nearby Havana. Try to trade something, soap, rice, and things like this. and other people started to grow things on every available place. So in the beginning was a very spontaneous movement.
Facing catastrophic food shortages, the authorities jumped on the bandwagon and threw out laws that used to ban any kind of farming in the city. To set an example, the Ministry of Agriculture tore up its front lawn to plant vegetables. Vacant land was given away to anyone who promised to grow food on it. The only problem was, few people knew how. The Cold War has never really ended in Cuba. There are only 2 television channels, both controlled by the state. So it's no accident when a program is devoted to the merits of organic mustard.
La mostaza es una planta, así como esta, muy parecida. Se come, tiene hojas, lógicamente. Nosotros solo trajimos la parte de las vainas, cuyas semillas.
The fact is, until recently, few people here knew much about growing anything. Havana has been a bustling city for centuries. Young and old enjoy the trappings of urban life, whether it's exercise class or the arts. The magnificent opera house is older than Canada, and the National Dance Company has an international reputation.
There's a whole lot of people in this city that have never had a garden in their lives and have seen their life very much as one of school, university, that sort of work, who are now dealing with the need to produce their own food. Cuba is essentially a very urbanised country, and there's not an enormous amount of traditional knowledge of farming.
Australian Pamela Morgan is an expert in urban agriculture. She's living in Havana as a volunteer, running workshops on how to grow food in unpromising environments.
What we have here is an attempt to make a garden in central Havana where there's really no space. A lot of other parts of Havana there's lots of open space, but here the only open spaces are where buildings have collapsed. And we came across this site covered in rubbish, and we managed to get together some groups of people to clear the site out, and then we've brought in a bit of soil and made raised beds here. And what we're trying to show is that you can grow plants right in the city areas.
Justo Torres attended a workshop on intensive horticulture, and now he's a believer in urban agriculture. Despite having no previous farming experience, he and his neighbors have transformed their inner city backyards by growing everything from cassava and avocados to tomatoes and coffee. His own garden is a showcase of ingenuity, with seed beds made out of old cans, car battery casings, and rubber tires. In these hard times, it's like growing gold. Justo's annual harvest is worth more than most Cubans make in a year. Today, he's discussing his good results with specialists from the Ministry of Agriculture and voluntary organizations.
El boom de los productos biológicos, utilizarlo como para el control de plagas, ningún campesino lo utilizó. Él sí lo aplicó y lo probó. Porque una gente que tú le dices, esto sirve para esto, pero entonces él lo coge y te lo compara y te le echa este fertilizante, a que él no le echa. Es un
investigador nato.
Sí, él. Pero bueno, él no lo. Porque él ha ido a foros.
Y ha ido a foros.
Some of the visitors stay for a tour of the neighborhood. It's hardly a greenbelt, but behind these stone walls, the vegetable plots are flourishing. At the first stop, the star attraction is an edible cactus plant.
Yo la cojo con un papel. Entonces agarro el cuchillo y le quito los ojitos esos que tú ves donde tienen las espinas porque las tienen concentradas ahí. Y la pico así en tiritas. Ya tengo agua hirviendo con un limón y sal. Y hago así, las echo, la tapo y le doy un minuto nada más porque si se pone muy blanda no sabe rica. Es mejor mascar.
Quiero volver a filmar la entrada.
At another home, the group gets a surprise. The owner tells them his garden has begun to influence his artwork.
Y quise hacer una representación de la tierra, la agricultura, los peces, el mar, pero el trabajo agrícola, el trabajo del desarrollo de la juventud.
Today, there are more than 20,000 private farmers in Havana. Some join together to form cooperatives, while others hire themselves out to work the land in front of factories and office buildings. Food production in the city has gone up 50 times in just 5 years. Not long ago, private enterprise of any kind was illegal in Cuba. But food shortages have forced the government to recognize the merits of a free market. Now financial incentives are being built into every link in Cuba's food chain. Nationwide, more than 80% of state livestock and vegetable farms have been turned over to those that work them. Part of their production can be sold at a profit, at whatever the market will bear. Nowhere are market forces more plainly at work than at the Central Mercado in Havana. After years of being empty, the stalls are once again crammed with fresh meat, fruit, and vegetables. And an entrepreneurial spirit has returned as well.
Buenas tardes.
Evita Odalis has a key role in the new market-oriented food supply system. She used to work as a government scientist. Now she runs her own Casa de Semilla, seed shop. Here, people in the neighborhood can also pick up tools, natural pesticides, and good old-fashioned advice. Most of the things for sale are provided by the Ministry of Agriculture. But Odalis sets prices and pays herself from the profits.
Estas tiendas tienen ya alrededor de 7 años, 7 u 8 años. Lo que pasa es que se han ido ampliando y la divulgación se ha ido aumentando y se han ido creando. Por eso es que se quiere dentro de la ciudad llegar hasta las 50 tiendas y extenderlas a todas las provincias del país.
Economic reforms are spreading to other parts of the economy. Using American dollars used to be a black market activity. Now it's legal, a change that has created two classes of people. Those on fixed incomes, still paid in Cuban pesos, have to scrounge for subsidized goods in gloomy peso department stores. Those who can afford it shop in shiny American dollar shops, but pay world prices. In this strange economy, the returns of a well-run backyard garden can exceed the salary of a senior bureaucrat or professional. It's enough to drive anybody back to the land. Jose Jimenez is a retired soldier. He's proud of his small suburban bungalow and of a photograph showing him with a young Fidel Castro. Now he has an unexpected second career. Every day he bicycles to a plot of land on the outskirts of Havana. Like thousands of others, he received it from the state in exchange for a promise that he use it to grow food.
Coño, después te veo, que tengo unos compañeros ahí que vinieron de visita ahí. Oye, te estaba esperando, hacía rato de Pozo me dijo que tú venías, Yo saqué 5.700 pesos la calabaza. La calabaza fue fantástica. Fantástica. Yo soy hipertenso, pero desde que yo tengo el pedazo de tierra nunca más me ha subido la presión.
Soon, almost all perishable vegetables eaten in Havana will be grown within the city limits. More than 1 million tons of milk, eggs, and meat are being produced as well. And it's mostly organic. You could say Cuba has gone green by default. It used to rely heavily on imported fertilizer and pesticides from Eastern Europe. Now it can't afford to. In Havana, chemical products are almost completely restricted, so they don't contaminate the water supply. It's been called the largest shift to organic farming ever attempted. And Roberto Perez is part of a new wave of Cuban scientists helping to make it happen.
In Cuba, the organic movement happens by need, in the sense that in many other countries of the world, people choose the organic way. So we didn't have the time to choose. It was our only chance.
Havana's farmers do more than feed people. They also produce medicinal plants that are helping to sustain Cuba's highly respected but struggling health system. Pharmaceuticals are scarce, and many are reserved for children. For adults, the only option is to rely on traditional remedies.
We pick up the tradition of the African religions and medicine banks. So you can go to the drugstore in Cuba, pharmacy, and they have one shelf full of different preparation of the medicine plants, how to use it and what it's for. So a doctor can give you a prescription for a medicine plant too, and you can go to the drugstore and get it. And urban agriculture supplies that.
The health of seniors has been particularly vulnerable during Havana's food crisis. At the Santo Vina Senior Citizens Home, the solution was to dig up its front grounds. The harvest from what is really a small farm, more than 1,000 tons of vegetables a year, has helped Santo Vina survive the food crisis. Now the residents are proud custodians of a healthy market garden, a cool oasis in one of the most densely populated parts of the city.
Cuando hay que arrancar hierba, arranco hierba, siembro, mata, hago de todo. De todo lo que haya que hacer lo hago.
Some of the residents here took part in the revolution that overthrew the Batista dictatorship in 1959. And though the home is run by Catholic nuns, the patron saint of the garden shed is still Che Guevara.
Pues es muy importante porque nosotros las hermanas hemos visto que los ancianos han evolucionado, se les ve más alegres, se les ve más serviciales y se les ve satisfechos de contribuir en la alimentación y también porque pueden ayudar a otros hogares de ancianos y de niños inválidos también.
The greening of Havana has relieved pressure on the government by making food more plentiful and reducing malnutrition. The achievement has also been recognized internationally with an alternative Nobel Prize and other awards.
You know, we're on the verge of, for the first time in humanity's history, to face an urban world. And it just makes, you know, economic sense for some of the more fragile and more nutritious, more critical sources of food to move closer to people.
Luc Mougeot is a scientist with Canada's International Development Research Centre. He believes that Cuba is a good example of how urban farming can help alleviate hunger, especially in hard-hit areas of Africa.
And we see that those countries in sub-Saharan Africa that urbanizing fastest are the least equipped to face the food needs of their growing populations. They can't even afford to import food. But the urban agriculture, when it comes in, it focuses on major sources of vitamins and micronutrients, which are essential for human beings' development, particularly children. Some lines of product within urban agriculture that are very, very profitable. I mean, we made estimates in the case of Dar es Salaam, the business of milk selling, it goes in the tens of millions of dollars per year.
The center is a leading supporter of research on urban agriculture. Through a program called Cities Feeding People, it helps researchers in developing countries address problems related to farming in cities. One goal is to influence policy and laws in favor of the estimated 800 million city dwellers engaged in farming.
Most of them don't do it on land that they own. So the whole issue of getting access to whatever space and land is available in the city is central to the kind of research that IDRC has been supporting and will be supporting over the next 4 years.
Urban agriculture has its advantages for rich countries too. In Toronto, Havana's success has been an inspiration for Food Share, an organization which packs and distributes food containers for 4,000 low-income families in Canada's largest city. Some of the fresh food it grows itself on the roofs and balconies of abandoned industrial sites.
For us here in the north, we can now go and say, look what's happening in Cuba. Under stress and under duress, they are able to figure out some new things, and we should take a lead from them. Absolutely. And one of the reasons we need to grow food in our city is we need to deal with compost, using that compost to grow food in the city, and repatriating and remediating soil that has been environmentally contaminated by industry. If we could capture that, we wouldn't need incinerators, we wouldn't need a whole variety of very, very expensive and very, very dangerous waste reduction methods at the end.
Despite the attention Havana's green revolution is getting from outside the country, its own future is not guaranteed. There are those in the Ministry of Agriculture who would go back to the old way of doing things.
Because they consider this agriculture, urban and organic farming, as a transition agriculture, as a crisis agriculture, as a poor people agriculture.
Havana's capacity to captivate and charm will endure. The shape of Cuba's political future, on the other hand, remains anyone's guess. Yet no matter who is in charge, there will be pressure to produce food at the lowest possible cost on huge mechanized farms in rural areas. For those who dream of a different way, cities that grow as much food as they consume, the next few years are crucial.
Those few years that are coming, time and a lot of energy to show them that this is not a step backwards, that the step backwards is to go back again to the conventional systems that never guarantee the proper food security for Cuban populations.